Will the defense make their opening statement at this time?
Yes, Your Honor.
Do you anticipate it to be as lengthy as Mr. Holmes'?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. And I'm going to take a break and allow the jurors to have their lunch. They've been more than patient. And we will resume at 2 p.m.
Okay.
Promptly.
All right.
That's my wife. It's fast. Mr. Rogers, are you the person that's going to make the opening?
Yes. Yes, Your Honor.
We have 2 smokers, yes.
Now.
Yeah, one girl Sunday, one girl smoking. They're through, we can get started.
Tired. She'd worked 40 hours in 4 days doing different responsibilities of a police officer. So in her mind, she was tired and she was going to go home and not have to go to work the next day. Now this speculation that her and Martin had a plan to hook up and be with each other that night is rank speculation. There is nothing to that, and there is no evidence of that. Her and Martin will tell you, they engaged in flirtatious banter all the time. The last time that they had been together sexually was well before this. Sometime in late 2017 was the last time, and we're in September of 2018. So they hadn't had a sexual encounter in months. So to say that it was ramping up is wrong. It's false. It's the opposite. It was ramping down. Amber was trying to move on. She's a 30-year-old female. The relationship with Martin wasn't going anywhere. They were good work partners, and she liked flirting with him. But she was looking for more stability, or for someone who was more available for her. And Martin Rivera will tell you, he has no reason to lie. There was absolutely no plans for him to meet up with her that night. He had never been to that apartment complex before this. He had never visited her there. He didn't know how to get there. He didn't have any plans that night. His plans were to take care of himself. He was going to work the next day. So don't let that distract you. What was going through Amber's mind was just, I'm going home. I'm done with my day of work. I'm exhausted and I'm going home. And that's what she did. Once she clocked out, once she docked her body cam, she left work. All the adrenaline, all the mundane tasks, everything was behind her, and she went in autopilot. You heard that Plano detective in Bordeaux talk about how sometimes he drove home and didn't know how he got there. Many of you have done that same thing. You go on autopilot and you don't pay attention to everything, but somehow you get home. And so yes, Amber was on the phone with Martin, and they were talking about work things and having a conversation. And she gets into her apartment complex, and she drives, and she's not counting the floors, and there's no numbers. And she keeps driving, and she sees a spot. And she can't believe that there's a spot that's right by the entrance. And she takes it. Was that evil of her to do? Was it evil of her not to count the floors? Was that just a reasonable reaction to, oh my gosh, I found a good spot? She backs into the spot. It's facing the entryway. She doesn't know. She didn't walk over here to see what floor she's on. She just knows. It looks the same. It's dark outside. She didn't do a full 360 scan to see the skyline. She just knows. Everything looks the same. This is my floor. Just like 93 other people had done. She gets out. She has her gear. She has her heavy vest, her lunch pail, and her bag in her left hand, and she's walking to her apartment. She walks the same way that she always walks. She goes through the entryway. Again, there's no number. What you will see when you see pictures of this apartment complex is that there's not numbers on the door. There's not numbers right here. The numbers are in white lights that are up and to the left. Amber's 5'3", 5'3", 120 pounds. There's nothing in her eyesight level that indicates what floor she's on. She would have to stop and look up to see. But everything looks the same. The hallways look the same. She doesn't make a note of her neighbor's floor mats. She doesn't say that, 1373 has pineapples and 1363 has balloons. She doesn't note. No one notes floor mats. And no, perhaps she didn't pay attention to the decorative habits of Mrs. Bly to note that the planter wasn't out in front. But why would she? She's going home. She's worked a long day. She's tired. She's almost home. She's walking the same way she's always walked. It looks the same. The doors are the same. The lights are the same. And she gets to 1478. Something about the door of 1478 you need to know, and it is clear through the investigation, is that the way the strike plate, this metal portion of the door, was installed, it was defectively installed, so it bows out. So when the temperature and the humidity are right, then the door doesn't always shut fully. It comes to a close, but it doesn't latch. So that when you push it, it opens. That's not Amber Guyger's fault. That's not an evil act on the part of Amber Guyger. It's unfortunate that that existed in 1478. Other circumstances. Both of them, John had gone to run an errand and had just got back at about 9:34. So when he walked in, he probably didn't check to make sure whether his door fully shut. It's not his fault. There's nothing he did for this to happen to him. It was just an unfortunate set of circumstances. Amber Guyger's fishing her keys out. She gets her keys out and she gets to the door, and the door looks like her door. She didn't look down at the floor mat. It's reasonable to say that if she looked down and saw a red mat, she would have thought, and then looked up at the numbers. To say that she was aware there was a red doormat and knowingly ignored it because she wanted to go into 1478 and shoot this man is preposterous. Amber Guyger was an autopilot. She got to the door and she put her key fob in, and in one motion, the door is opening. And it doesn't make sense because normally you have to turn the handle. And she's trying to process this as she's stepping into her apartment. And at the same time, I'm sure Mr. Jean is thinking, what is this person doing? Who is coming to my apartment? So he's confused. He's wondering what's going on. She's thinking, what is going on? Why is this man in my apartment? And she looks up, and he's standing up. And he's about 30 feet away from her. And I'm sure he's alarmed. But she's thinking, oh my God, there's an intruder in my apartment. And she's face to face with him. She's within 10 yards of him. And he starts approaching her. And she reacts like any police officer would who has a gun with confronting a burglary suspect. Keep in mind, this procedural distraction is just that, because procedures are in place when officers get a call for a burglary call. You have time, you have a plan, you have all these things going on when you're going to that call to plan for it. Amber Guyger was in what she thought her apartment when she was confronted with an intruder. And so she pulls her weapon. And she's expecting, as soon as she displays her gun, this man, this intruder, is going to stop. And she can see his hands. It's dark in there. She's going from a well-lit hallway into a dark apartment. Her eyes are trying to adjust. She's got tunnel vision. She's not looking around to see if her little table is there. She's not looking around to see any landmarks. She's not ascertaining any of this because she has tunnel vision. She's in her apartment. My God, there's a man in my apartment and he's big. He's twice her size. And he's coming at her and she pulls her gun. And she starts to say hands. But he drowns her out and he's yelling, hey, hey! And he's 25 feet and then he's 20 feet and it's happening like this and she has to make decisions. And there's this intruder and I'm holding a gun and why is he not stopping? Why is he yelling at me? Why is he coming at me? Why is my gun, the display of my gun, not working? He must have a weapon. He must want to kill me because I caught him burglarizing my apartment. And he's getting closer and he's getting to 20 feet and he's getting to 15 feet. And he's not stopping and she's holding a gun and she fires twice because she knows, at that time, she knows this man means to kill me. He broke into my apartment. He was all the way at the back of my apartment. I've displayed a gun. I'm wearing a police uniform. He didn't stop. He must have meant to kill me. And she fires her weapon. And the evidence, a reasonable deduction from the evidence is that the two shots are in line with each other. She fires and there's some recoil and the second shot goes at an upward angle. The reconstruction that the Texas Rangers did who investigate this and the conclusions that they made were that Mr. Jean was 13 to 15 feet from the center of the doorway when he was shot. You'll see in the photos there's flip-flops that are on the floor that he was likely wearing that represent a close approximation of where he was. And that's in the middle, that is closer to the counter. It's away from the couch. There is zero evidence, there is zero physical evidence of this preposterous scene where Mr. John is getting up and gets shot in the heart and somehow walks to the middle of the apartment towards the person that shot him and then collapses backward. What is reasonably likely from the evidence and the angle of the shot is that Mr. John was confused. He didn't know who was coming and he was going towards that person to say, hey, hey, what are you doing in here? And he sees the gun and he leans down and gets shot as he's coming towards her and falls back. And you'll see when arresting officers come, you'll see the position of his body and you'll see that it is impossible for him to have been sitting where they say he was. The medical examiner is going to say, we don't do tests we don't shoot people in the heart and see how their body reacts. But it was a devastating injury that would have been rendered him incapable of much movement. This purposeful steps is pure speculation. What is more likely that the physical evidence shows is that he was coming towards Amber. He was probably 13 feet away from her, approaching her as an intruder in her mind when she shot him. And she fired twice and she thought, oh my God, I just had to defend my life. And she approaches the body and the adrenaline, the fear turns into horror as she starts processing, oh my God, that's not my table. I don't have that ottoman. Oh my God, that ironing board is not mine. Oh my God. It starts to dawn on her as she approaches Mr. John's body. What a horrible, horrible mistake she has just made. And she reacts by the first thing she can grab is call 911. She needs help. You hear her on the 911 call. I need help. I need EMS. She recognizes that. She sees where she shot him. She knows that is a bad place for him to be shot. She knows she can't do anything for him but get help. You hear her say on the 911 call, hurry, please. You hear her say 22 times, I thought I was in my apartment. I thought I was in my apartment. She's trying to process this. They want to say how a 911 call should have gone, that she should have said everything that happened in that apartment. She has to claim self-defense in the 911 call or it doesn't count. She wants help. She knows she can't physically help this man. She knows his best chance is for EMS to come. And she's talking to 911 and she says, I'm sorry. And she's talking in stream of conscience. And she knows that she's messed up. She knows she's made a tragic mistake. But it's not out of evil. It's not out of careless recklessness. It's not out of a criminal state of mind. It's out of life. It's out of human errors. It's out of all the things that people have done in this accumulation of events that led to this awful, awful tragedy. And so she's on 911 and she's trying to process this. And hey bud, I'm sorry. And she starts realizing, I'm going to lose my job. I need a supervisor. She's going back and forth from cop to trying, just sheer panic of what she's just done. This woman that had worked so hard, that had overcome adversity in her life, that was 1 second felt she was in danger of her life, has realized she made a mistake. And you hear on the 911 call her trying to process that. And you hear on the 911 call the officers are struggling to get in there because it's so confusing. That apartment complex is so confusing that they can't find it. And so she runs out in the hallway and says, hey, here, I'm down here. And she does appeal to Martin. She does text Martin because that's her rock. That's who she's been in so many difficult situations with on the streets. She's trying to get help. She's trying to get help to Mr. John, and she's trying to get people there. She's not hiding behind anything. She's the one that's calling the troops to come to get her. And her actions show just a young woman that's just devastated. Absolutely devastated by what just happened. Ladies and gentlemen, the discipline that you have to have in this trial is enormous because they are holding Amber Guyger to an impossible standard. They're holding her and twisting and turning and making things that are innocent mistakes into evil acts. You'll hear from Amber. You'll get to know Amber Guyger. You'll get to know the hard worker, the young woman that worked her way to the crime response team and made a mistake. How awful and tragic, but innocent. And when you apply your reason, and when you apply common sense and the law of self-defense, it will be clear. It will be clear that the only verdict, the only justice in this case is to find Amber Guyger not guilty. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.